Welcome everyone to our exciting webinar here at Shippo, where we're going to be talking about agentic commerce and how we think it's really reshaping the future of e-commerce. We have a fantastic panel here today that we'll be introducing shortly. I will quickly introduce myself and then have this great panel introduce themselves. So my name is Neil Patel. I am the Senior Director of Strategic Partnerships here at Shippo, and very excited to be your webinar host for this topic today. And let's get the panel intros going, and we'll start with Jeff.
Hi, everyone. I'm Jeff Smalling, CTO of Shippo. I'm leading technology and execution for Shippo's platform. We're really focused on building the shipping layer of the internet, making sure that we're empowering direct shippers, marketplace technology providers with a platform to scale their shipping. And this year, we're really specifically focused on intelligent shipping at scale. And this is like beautiful because we're here today to talk about this topic, agentic shipping through MCPs. I'm very pleased. Like right now, we're a customer of Stripe's MCP, so it's exciting to sit as a customer of that. And we're partnering very closely with Wix on how to help them with our product. And so we've got a great panelist here. Prior to Shippo, I led product and engineering in global logistics for Flexport, a large global logistics provider, and sort of got my roots as a direct shipper back in the .com era, leading wine.com from for about 13 years. So my roots are in direct shipping and really delivering these complex products accurately at scale. And so I'll pass it over to Amit.
Hi, everybody. Thank you for having me, Neil. It's great to be here. My name is Amit. I co-lead FinTech at Wix, which starts at payments all the way through managing banking accounts, issuing credit. Strong partner with Stripe here, so I feel the same excitement that Jeff just mentioned, working with two of my co-partners here in this conversation. That's great. I've been in the fintech scene for many, many years and have been working in AI, data science, and the agentic space of fintech for many years in running our operations and our scale in what we call a very efficient way, um, and taking part in this revolution that we're all feeling right now as Wix frontiers this creation side of the agentic world, bringing everybody's dreams online, whether they're a small business or a big business. Um, we see this tremendous appetite for streamlining and helping pass through all these technical difficulties that we used to have, and moving forward in creation and operation of businesses. Excited for the conversation. Thank you. Jake.
Cool. I can round us out. So Jake Sinsheimer, excited to be here as well, alongside two great partners. I'm the head of Agentic Commerce go-to-market at Stripe. For those of you who aren't as familiar with Stripe, we're effectively financial infrastructure to help businesses grow their revenue, whether that's accepting payments or offering financial services or implementing custom revenue models. We effectively help businesses of all shapes and sizes move money globally. And then maybe more specific to this topic, we are really focused on building the economic infrastructure in the AI space. My responsibilities are sort of twofold. One, we endeavor to help sellers, whether those are big box retailers, SMBs, platforms, or marketplaces, hook into Stripe to sell agentically across AI platforms. Then two is nurturing the ecosystem of AI platforms and agents that make agentic commerce possible. And so prior to this, I've been at Stripe for a little more than 6 years. I led a go-to-market team focused on SaaS platforms, so helping platforms like Wix and others embed payments and other fintech solutions and distribute those to their merchants. So really excited to be here.
Fantastic. Thanks, everyone. And for all of you watching, the goal here is to really have a really good in-depth conversation around not only agentic commerce, but how we're thinking about that from the end-to-end e-commerce life cycle. So that could be kind of, discovery and intent all the way to operational execution. And we want you to leave here today just kind of understanding what this panel is thinking around what agentic commerce means today. What are the things we're already seeing in market where it could be use cases, pilots, value that's already showing up. And then if you're, an operator, a brand, or even a platform, how should you be thinking about preparing for this? And where do we think maybe the next 90 days and then even next year is going to unfold as it relates to agentic commerce? And so our first topic will really be kind of setting the stage of what does agentic commerce really mean, just because that gets thrown out a lot. You hear AI, you hear agentic, you hear commerce, but really, what does it mean? And so let's start with Jake, and then we'll go around. How do you define agentic commerce, right? When you hear the term in different forums, kind of what does that mean to you? And then, kind of getting to the real talk, right? Like what are you actually seeing versus maybe what you're hearing?
Cool. Maybe I'll define it at a high level. So I would define sort of AI-enabled commerce in maybe two related form factors. One is AI-assisted commerce. So that would be humans or businesses making purchases within an AI application or surface, like ChatGPT, for example, where they've migrated their search and discovery, and then they're just sort of completing transactions while being in the loop within that surface. And the second, I would say, is AI delegated commerce, which would be autonomous agents effectively completing purchases on behalf of consumers or businesses. We're seeing a lot more activity in bucket one as the foundations get laid down for bucket two. I would say most retailers and brands that I talk to use the broader definition and see both as a critical component of the agentic landscape. And then in terms of your question, Neil, around what are we actually seeing concretely today? So Stripe is effectively building a multi-sided marketplace of sellers and AI agents, and that's fundamental to the strategy in the space. A lot of you might have seen that we launched the Agentic Commerce Protocol last year, which was co-developed alongside OpenAI. And we sort of announced that with Etsy. And so people can effectively do search and discovery for a product. Maybe I'm looking for a retro World Cup t-shirt to wear at this summer's World Cup. I see that an Etsy seller has that within the ChatGPT application, and then I can kind of complete a purchase from there. And then subsequently, we've also launched a similar experience within Microsoft Copilot. We have brands like Urban Outfitters and Anthropologie who have gone live with that search and discovery experience. And I think moving forward, we expect the Agentic Commerce Suite, which is the Stripe software layer, basically enable merchants to hook into and sell across all of the AI agent surfaces, both big companies and small and emerging companies. So think of it as like a one hub that a merchant could integrate in to get access across all the spokes.
That's very interesting. So it seems like search and discovery is really that first foray into agentic commerce, and that's where you're seeing also a lot of brands and retailers work with you all in that use case. Amit, on your side, at Wix, right, being an e-commerce platform, what are you seeing or what is surfacing to the top at Wix when agentic commerce comes to mind?
So I won't repeat what Jake said, but we are definitely seeing those two things happen also on our side. And we've partnered both with Stripe and PayPal and with Google, and we act as a distribution towards multi-surfaces that basically takes our merchant, and we look at agentic commerce as another channel in our omni-channel offering, in our connected commerce offering, similar to POS for physical or mobile or desktop as interfaces. So we look at it first in this gradual adoption mode where nobody's fully agentic in the sense that that's where all their traffic is coming from, but everybody needs to be present in that shift. So also to refer to the question in the chat, this is how we frontier this. We participate and partake in this design phases and make sure that our merchant gets exposed. But that's only on the, I would say, storefront point of view, there is a lot of store management and operation that is run within our operating system for our business, which is agentic, in the broader sense of agentic commerce. And I do think that it should be in that broader sense because as operators, we know that uh, you need to market, you need to make sure your inventory is in place, you need to make sure your pricing is correct, you need to make sure you manage your payments, and all of these aspects that up until not so long ago have been very heavy on the manual side are going through this shift and this transition towards agentic operations. So there is the buyer-facing activity, but there's also a very heavy merchant-facing activity that we've built.
Absolutely. That I mean that's very exciting to see how you're thinking about the full journey when it comes to commerce. And Jeff, love to hear what you think, especially with your deep expertise on the logistics and operations side.
Yeah, I think that's the flip side of the coin that Amit was getting to. While discovery is important and transactions are important, that final delivery is that where that really customer experiences the product. And I think that's where we're hearing from our customers their focus. Their operation teams might be small, they might not have the tooling, and this is a really exciting spot for those direct shippers and marketplaces to leverage agentic experts. An expert that understands inventory, an expert that understands you know uh, fulfillment exceptions, and stitch those two experts together to handle exceptional cases. And so we're seeing a lot of interesting use cases from the direct shippers operation teams in making sure that customer gets what they ordered at the discovery intent phase. So I think that's one exciting use case we're definitely seeing that's people should start using. It's something that's available today, right? And you don't have to build the perfect platform in the discovery. You can use it day in, day out, and keep tuning those operational tools.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think we touched on some of those main parts, right? Which is how do you enable your customers or your customers that you're trying to get, right? Find you and your products. But then, of course, how do you leverage agentic commerce in the running of your business? And then more importantly, delivering the level of satisfaction to your customers that they've either come to expect from your business or that you want to be able to deliver, leveraging these types of tools. And so, very excited to kind of really double click on the end-to-end journey there. And let's start with the first part, right? The discovery and intent. Because this is where, right, consumers are searching maybe in different ways. Jake talked about, Chat GPT and the ability to search, find, and surface, products from different places within that window without having to leave and go to a browser or go, take on a bunch more clicks, right? So discovery is so important, and let's just kind of dig a little bit deeper there. Amit, let's start with you because on Wix's side, right, you're going to help your merchants providing the tools for them to go into market, attract consumers, right, and then be able to surface them. In this kind of agentic world of discovery, what are some of the new challenges and maybe even opportunities you are seeing that this introduce for your brands and merchants who are now saying, I have to stand out in this way?
So I think the first place we see is a huge opportunity, and we have been working hard on this opportunity since I think 2016, is in AI editors and website creators. So even to get off the ground is very hard. You might have a good product in mind or a good go-to-market strategy, but to create fit to your buyers, it's very hard. And to create good visuals and good explanation in text, that's a cumbersome, undertaking where it usually takes a whole crew. And we all know from what I've seen in the participants, people here have a vast experience in building businesses. It's a hard task. It's a very hard task. And as we at Wix started this journey towards AI creation, this is where we harness those capabilities to streamline that creation. So first thing, I would say towards discovery, you want to have a stunning website. You want to have clear content. You want to have perfect SEO. You want to have all of these things ready for your touch point. And you want to also test multiple approaches. You want to have your A/B test and you want to have marketing assets created. And again, that is very hard. That is still old world discovery, right? Even that was hard, but that has shifted into agentic creation that allows that part to be streamlined way faster. And we can now, if you use Wix Harmony, you have a combination between vibe coding and the classic editor, which gives you this merge of old world and new world where you can drag and drop and at the same time prompt. And that creates that first layer ready for discovery. And then on top of that, you have all of the attributes you put on top of a product, the way you describe it, the way you enrich the data that gets pushed towards the surfaces, the platforms, and eventually leads to much better discovery capabilities. I think many brands in the world right now are asking themselves, how do I get discovered better? How do I put myself out there in a more unique way? What we encourage our merchants to do is test, because testing now is easier, simpler, cheaper, and eventually proves itself in numbers. So you could have multiple landing pages, you could have multiple campaigns. And as you put a product out there into the market, you want to have it very rich in terms of attributes so it gets discovered. Because I think we've all experienced on ourselves when you go to the chat GPT and you're looking for something, you fairly get a very granular ask. So I want the running shoes that are in my size and with
Yeah.
the brand that I like. And that conversation is very personalized, very fast. So the more attributes you have that helps the LLM fit the request and the supply, the better you are to be discovered. And you also have to think of the discovery phase in a different way. It's not like I would land in a website and start scrolling. Even if I came from a very specific Google search and it would open up a category page on that shoe, I will still see multiple shoes around me and I will flick through them or discover them. Now you want to have something much more fitting to that prompt request. So details, product spec, all of these things, they prove to be very important in the new discovery mode.
Yeah, absolutely. And as that happens, right, there's a flywheel that gets created because a Claude or Chat GPT remembers
Yeah,
and they learn about you and your profile, and then they don't need as much the next time because they already know probably what it is you're looking for, right? And will continue to build off of that, making it even easier and easier for you as a consumer to get what you want, but it does make it difficult to be, for a brand to be discovered. Um, Jake, I think, building on this, you had mentioned previously, right, the kind of the protocols that are coming out, and especially as Stripe is helping build that. And, as we talk about, both discovery and just agentic commerce, as some of these different protocols are being, introduced in market, can you speak to just what you're seeing as how these protocols are maybe enabling or what does that potentially hurt innovation, right? And if you're a operator out there, how should you be thinking about these protocols as they're released into market?
Yeah, totally. So we obviously sort of pioneered with the sort of first moving protocol. We expect there to be many, many protocols in the fullness of time. And we think that sort of just signals increased investment into the space and enables the right sort of foundational layers to get laid. Like obviously we saw the Google and the UCP announcement alongside Shopify. Candidly, like we're excited that Google is leaning in. The space needs multiple players working together in order to build a common set of standards. And so how we're sort of thinking about it at Stripe is that we're building a suite of solutions, and merchants should be able to come to Stripe and basically plug in, upload their product catalog, work with a third-party syndicator, or work with us directly. And then we should be able to, whether that is through UCP or ACP or any of the protocols that will get developed into the future, hook those merchants in and get them set up to be successful, selling agentically across all of the AI services that they want to be across. And so I think in terms of the challenges for sellers, and similar to Amit just said, one is like the challenge is getting surfaced at all. And so you need to, right, organize your product catalog, syndicate that product catalog into all of those services. And then, like, what are you actually syndicating? Agents need more structured data. And most product data tends to be what I would refer to as semi-structured or just optimized for human reading. So in a future world, right, agents aren't really going to care if like a button is red or green. They want and care about reading through intent through context. And so I think it's less about in the sort of new world, less about marketing copy, more about kind of explicit, organized product attributes. Like, are you appending your product catalog data with additional third-party information, reviews, product sentiment data, et cetera? And that's all going to be critical to getting chosen once you have your data out there. And then the last piece is sort of making sure that the sellers can actually control their brand narrative. Those end customers might not even hit your website at all during the discovery or purchasing process. You can still be the merchant of record and still sort of own the end outcome of that purchase. And obviously folks like Shippo help with that. And so I think, right, we're helping merchants understand how do they differentiate when they don't control the interface. And so I think that's kind of agnostic of, which protocol you're hooking into, et cetera.
Absolutely. No, that's great to kind of lay the land and obviously, for everyone, right? This is early days. Some of these things that we're talking about were announced, what, a month ago? So ChatGPT's 3.5 years old. We're definitely in the early days of just AI and agentic commerce, but as you can just hear from this conversation, and of course what you can see in the news, this is very real and it's very much here to stay. It's just kind of unfolding as we go. Jeff, kind of jumping over to you in this theme, right, from your point of view, as all of these early decisions are made right by the consumer when it's discovery intent. As an operator, how do you see that, right, kind of rippling downstream? And what thinking needs to come in from that operator point of view to make sure that, kind of that life cycle promise is fulfilled?
I think Amit and Jake touched on it, so I'll just echo quickly what they said. But the experience of the Agentic Commerce, it almost lends to curation, right? And so to curate the right choice at the right time, you've got to have that product catalog that's accurate, right? And like right now, go experience it. Like sometimes, I was looking for a weird piece of furniture on many of the different e-commerce sites, like width and depth were all wrong, right? The AI cuts through that noise and recommended me 3 or 4 choices that I can go refine. And so they were both in stock. They were the right widths and depths. They were the right details for what I wanted. And it got pretty darn close to giving me 3 choices at different price breaks. And then I could go refine it. So you have that curation expert that's just going to accelerate things. And so as an operator, you've got to think, how do I build all my tools that build my catalog? How do I make sure that data is accurate? How do I give the AI agentic system the right inventory and the right attributes to go select? Because you're going to go to a curation experience over this scroll and search experience. And I think it's going to be a real big lift that's going to improve a lot of people's purchasing decisions and intent decisions and drive conversion if you do it right.
Absolutely. No, that's a great example and really shows kind of the different way you can engage, right, with the same brand or store, and also be surfaced to them as a prospective buyer.
You're
So
going to
it's
have
it's
to
very
compete, right? Because it's going to bring
exactly,
it all together. And the ones that are going to compete are going to have the highest accuracy, just like in the modern world.
absolutely, absolutely. And I think it's a great kind of segue to, as we think about that life cycle, the next step, which is really around the decisioning and then the orchestration, right? And for operators out there, I think one of the big questions that probably comes up, one is obviously how do I get started? But two is, you know, what level of trust? Should I give to some type of agent or AI, right? Today. And I think that's super important to talk about a little bit here. So the next poll we're going to jump into is just to get a sense for you all out there. Um, what would you today, from a commerce decision perspective, trust an AI agent with? And kind of in the general theme of, turning to trust and kind of just bringing this agentic experiences into action. Let's start with just kind of chatting a little bit about, where do you see agents currently being able to, with the right level of accuracy and trust, um, make decisions, right? Faster than humans, right? Make decisions with the right level of accuracy that is worth, right, considering and deploying today. And I think, Jake, let's start with you on this topic.
Yeah, I think it's interesting because you have to think of there's agents on the merchant side, right? And then there's agents on the end consumer or business side that is doing the purchasing. I think to date, we've seen agents more so in play at scale in the former bucket than in the latter bucket. But it's still interesting to talk about what are the trust boundaries for the latter bucket as well. I think consumers, generally speaking, they still want human approval for high stakes decisions, whether are large purchases or have high complexity, et cetera. We think agents excel at constrained optimization within guardrails. And so trust is generally speaking like earned incrementally, lower risk, high frequency purchases in shopping environments with clear guardrails like budgets, et cetera, in place. And you sort of work your way up as confidence builds. And then, like in terms of what inputs agents are weighing, sort of on the checkout side at the time of a transaction, right? Payment credentials, fraud or risk signals, inventory availability, delivery promises. Maybe Jeff can talk about that. Cart logic, customer identity, et cetera. Those are all sort of the critical components and the nuts and bolts on the payment side. And then the sort of stuff on kind of the trust layer on the payment token side, we launched something called the shared payment tokens or SPT that works regardless of if Stripe is the payment service provider. And basically what that is are secured limited use credential, and that lets merchants sort of charge customers without exposing raw card data. And so these are like trust features, right? Tokenized credentials, explicit value limits, right? Purchases capped at agreed upon amounts, rich fraud context, whether it's like IP, location, behavioral signals, agent to merchant, et cetera. And so I think, right, as we think about sort of overall trust and the layer of trust and fraud protection for agentic commerce, we'll sort of need to continue to evolve the underlying standards and systems to ensure that we actually pave the path toward not just sort of agentic on the merchant side to end consumer, but agentic on the merchant side to agentic on the actual consumer or business doing the purchasing.
Yeah, that's a good call out. And I think one of the big items that you spotlighted is the checkout page, right? I think traditionally when we think about e-commerce, that ultimate page is the checkout page. This is where it all comes together, right? We're searching for items. We've been brought to the store or a marketplace or whatever it may be. We've taken someone through that journey, and now we're at the checkout page where really the highest level of trust is being generated, right? Input your payment information, input your shipping information, and click the, whatever respective complete order, make the purchase button. And that's where that contract between the seller and the buyer is truly memorialized. And so let's talk a little bit more about that checkout page, because the checkout page itself is also evolving through agentic commerce. And so, on Wix's side, right, what how are you all thinking about that? Because this is such a core piece of your business and what you're delivering to your customers. Yeah.
So trust is one of my favorite topics, actually, I have to say, because it's an evolving topic as technology comes in, and we keep coming and facing this trust question. We used to not trust websites, or we used to not trust suppliers that we didn't know because they were not in our town. Okay, and trust is something that is being built, and what we are actually seeing is that trust now is being built faster than ever. I don't know about you, but I ask my LLMs everything from why is my daughter having a fever to where I can find the next furniture. So I actually think that we're at an age where general intelligence will require general trust because we were no longer in a niche. Okay, so and the checkout page, in a way, is that first moment of general trust, because when Wix supplies a checkout page, that checkout page would be working for a yoga teacher or for a e-com shop. Okay, and it's the same level of trust that's required. Um, so of course there is all these PCI credentials that you have to live by and all the tokenization aspects. But I think more than anything, there is a user experience that encourages the trust. So at Wix, what we're trying to do is it's almost like a two-sided motion. One, you want to eliminate the checkout because it's a friction point, and you want almost the experience to be frictionless with no checkout. I picked my product. I said I want it. You have my credentials. Leave me alone. Let me just walk away with the product. So that's like an ultimate frictionless experience. But at the same time, ask yourself, do you really want no interaction at the checkout level, or are you not there yet on the trust level? So on the one side, you want to minimize, the input level and how hard it is to put all the credentials and all the selections. But on the other hand, you want to have very clear control over the action. So, what I want to kind of highlight is as you're defining your experience, you do want to create that level of trust. So, the right acknowledgement in a message, the right notification, having the right uh, kind of exposed fields versus unexposed, just like Jake said, in terms of if there's a token system behind it, you have that much more trust in the system. Um, so I think that's the combination where we as operators or platforms that facilitate operators are living in that tension between no checkout and just the right amount of checkout.
I also think that's like, you know, as we talked about this curated experience, it's the interesting thing. Like the LLM can have that context of you. Like when you use LLMs daily and you built that trust with it, it's built a context around you. And I think we can get there like with the true agentic commerce as the checkout understands that context. Like at wine.com, we were always trying to create that in-store feeling, right? And you could filter and you could search and you could say, oh, Jeff always buys 90-point wines under $20. So let's provide Jeff this. Like the context becomes there. And so it's going to make that delightful experience. But where we're seeing it, even in our own checkout, because we sell labels to app customers, and where we're able to drive that context and drive that experience is like things with, as Jake said, with estimated delivery or insurance, like understanding the context of that transaction. Like I might be sending Neil a gift, right? And I need it to get there. And it's high value. So, hey, you should use expedited delivery and you should do insurance, right? We can start upselling and cross-selling. I think those are things that you could do that are low risk, right? And start testing this agentic with understanding the context of the sale, understanding the context of the value, understanding the context of where you want to spend. And I think it's going to make this incredibly delightful experience in the next few years as we figure this out. It's all about context, product context, customer context, conversion context.
I think it's spot on. I was waiting for the word context to come up. I think it's spot on.
Yeah, 100%. And I like just throughout the conversation, the word kind of testing and then learning, coming forth, because that's what this really is, right? Is how do we try something, do it with an approach like we talked about A/B testing, in a way we can learn from it and then improve and iterate, um, and kind of get better from there. And I think, I want to talk a little bit about that more. But before we jump right into it, let's kind of get the next poll, for the audience, where we would love to just hear, what are you currently doing with agentic tools today? And this could be, using ChatGPT to having your own agentic experiences. Yeah, it'd be great for you all to input that. And while you do, I think for the panel, what would be great to hear is, as we build this trust, bring this into action in this kind of testing approach, um, edge cases, exceptions, you know, operational gaps, these things always come up, right? So for an operator who's maybe wanting to start testing and optimizing an agentic tool, right? What, I guess, what advice would you give, to kind of help them with their thinking and how they should approach this? And maybe what are you seeing, in the market, some different brands and merchants do to get going? Amit, you want to take this one to start with?
Sure. So
Perfect.
first thing you need to do, come to Wix. We'll give you some tools.
I love
And
it.
you can test it really simply. Seriously. Go now, as we're speaking, hop on Wix.com, go to Harmony, and create a shop for selling socks. See how fast you get there. And it will just spark up ideas in your brain. And then you say, okay, I want a landing page or somebody to leave me some details in a form. I used to take a day or 2 days if I had a good developer in my back pocket that I could text, and I would tell him, David, I want you to test this idea. Now I just do it as a guy with ideas. You just or a woman with ideas. You just throw it in there, and you see if you like it or not. You give it some references in terms of visuals, and as you go along, it also understands your brand language, because I'm sure each brand wants to be differentiated by the language they are, and you get something you can run. You can actually run to production very fast, and see if it gets attention. Like, I don't think we need to wait for this full agent to agent mode where all the bots go and buy and sell in our name. That will come. That will come eventually. I don't know, like in a matter of months, years. I'm not a prophet, but what's there right now makes our life as operators super straightforward, easy. It makes it hard because we can no longer blame others. So we cannot say, "Oh, it takes forever because somebody didn't build my HTML page or didn't build my campaign or the pixel's not there to track my order." You actually get it out of the box in a very high quality fashion today, and you can run your ideas. So if, I don't know, if you're an operator and you have a marketing team and they're giving you, it's going to take a month, tell them, guys, you're not in the right state of mind. And the same goes for your financial manager. If they have a chargeback in their system and they haven't disputed it yet, that's money you need to handle. Okay. So, and that I know because we've developed it. We help you dispute now through AI because we know the communication you had with your buyers, and we can give you the right evidence, things that used to take very long. And there's many examples within Wix, which I'm sure there's also other platforms that are doing it. But you can literally go take a task that you used to do in a very manual way because you know it very well, and you, in a matter of, I want to say hours. It could be less once you're proficient, but let's say hours. In a matter of hours, you're there, and you test it in the wild, and you get real results. And if you don't know how to read the data, use Agentic to read the data because it helps you also on that side. So pre-sale, during sale, post-sale, it all can be tested in chunks. You don't have to swallow the entire cake at once. You start small, you test, you iterate, and you build your own trust with the systems you interact with. And you build them in spaces that you can actually uh, be the editor and the auditor. So if you're no longer the creator of every step, you're required to take a level up and you edit and audit the creation and you edit and audit the results and you constantly tweak and adjust and adapt to where your customers are. And that's so fast. When we see brands that are actually adopting these tools, uh, the real limitation is their creativity and the brains behind the keyboard. Um, so this is what I would do, and this is what I recommend our merchants to try as they reach out to us, because a lot of the times people feel perplexed. There's so much hype and buzz, and there's so much things that you feel you're competent or incompetent, and we just don't know how to approach. Um, but actually lean into your strong side. Like if you're an operator that does marketing really well, you can automate your skills now. You can put them faster. If you're really good at picking products and curating them, you can do like there are all these things. So you start where you're strong, unlike what a lot of people do, and they say, "Okay, let me fill in a gap where I feel uncomfortable." But then it's very hard to assess whether or not you got a good result. So I actually tend to tell people, go into where you're strong, test it, build that foundational trust with the platforms you're running on, and then you expand.
Absolutely. I think just getting started and taking that test, learn, and iterate mentality is the best way to move forward. Um, Jake, what do you think as far as um, you know, getting going right, and then as someone gets going, when these different, let's call it edge cases or exceptions and things pop up, how to kind of bring the thinking and handle them.
Maybe I'll do three buckets in Agentic. I'll do Agentic Commerce and I'll do how to use Agentic tools to help your customers move faster with your product or help your company move faster. In the Agentic Commerce space, I think we're very much in a foundational era for this or time period for this year. And the critical component is getting ready, organizing your product catalog information, deciding which companies you're going to partner with, executing on test and learn. Okay, maybe you only want to feed your product data into this surface and see how much traffic that drives to your website. And then maybe for this other surface, okay, actually you want to test end to end and you want sort of payments to be initiated within the chat service. Or maybe you want to actually chat or spin up a test within an ad platform and test out some agentic capabilities where you're running ads, et cetera. And so my advice is to sort of test and learn quickly and then iterate from there in agentic commerce. Relative to the other two buckets, I would say, right, you're looking to build tools that make your product work better or faster for your users. And you're looking to actually leverage tools that make your employees or company move faster. So I'll use us as an example. Maybe Jeff said earlier, like the Stripe MCP, which Shippo uses. Let's say AI agents sort of call the Stripe API directly in dev tools. So that's like live in Claude Code or in Cursor or in VS or Codex, et cetera, where, right, your customers can sort of leverage your technology within those sort of dev tools. Two is like Agent SDK. We let, right, folks generate payment links, create subscriptions, bill for usage, et cetera. The Stripe dashboard, we're like making recommendations on what users should do based on everything we know about users like them. And then lastly, like support, which is the obvious one, right? You can make it so your customers have their queries, right, resolved more quickly than they would otherwise and limit sort of human escalations. And then maybe the last piece, I would say, we think a lot about how can we be the fastest company in the world. And so we let all employees, technical or non-technical, use an agent builder to build our own agents to help us all move faster. I created an agent by like loading 50 docs and 100 emails that sort of can write in my unique personal voice or style. And things like that help the tedious process of writing your manager, here's my weekly updates. And as long as you sort of have rolled some bullets to that agent, you'll produce a crisp, well-written update. And so there's thousands, if not millions, of use cases like that. So that's how I would think about it.
Yeah, absolutely. And I like the way you kind of put things in the different buckets. Makes it easier to kind of frame around and just get going. Um, Jeff, from kind of the fulfillment and operations side of things, right? As an operator who wants to get started and think about maybe what that first use case or two just to get going is, what do you recommend or how do you think someone should prepare?
Yeah, I think on the operations, Jake touched on it, right? It's just using it. What we're seeing surprised me is a lot of our customers who are starting to adopt the MCP or our tooling. I thought they would go on something like customer facing, like returns automation was where I thought it would go. But no, the answer is like, how do I speed up these operational tasks? Like where's my order tracking, or even looking at my supply chain and what to optimize. Or we are exploring ourselves like how to speed up support tickets. So looking at the support tickets that come in, looking at which ones have high cost to serve and seeing if we can automate away those. So like we're using the MCP, the Stripe MCP to automate refunds instead of credits, right? We do credits today, but can we just give a refund, right? And so I think it's really just getting started, looking at the tooling and not being scared to give it a try. Even internally at Shippo, we were building a product to simulate network optimization and rate optimization. Account manager tried it and had the cursor or the Claude talk to our Databricks tool, get the data, and then had our own Shippo MCP re-rate all those transactions and get a result of how the customer should automate or optimize their network, right? So you can just try things, and I'm surprised almost every time that the agent gets close or gets further than we would have gotten with a lot of investment. So just start.
I love it. That's a great way to kind of segue into the Q&A, right? Just get started. And the good thing is a lot of the questions are actually around that, right? How do I get started? How do I start thinking about this? And so, these are great organizations here to engage with your, folks at Wix and Stripe and Shippo, and we can help you do that. But the first question I want to ask for the panel here is when someone is getting started, and I know we're in early days, but from maybe your experience, what is something that's maybe an aha moment or something that people tend to underestimate when they are getting started that would be good for kind of this group to be aware of?
I think generally speaking, the sort of critical component is understanding the sort of difference between syndicating your product feed and data into AI surfaces versus actually sort of having a transactional component that enables end users or businesses to complete transactions within that surface. And so sort of understanding the nuances there is one. And then two, maybe one thing I'll say, even though you didn't necessarily prompt it, this is like super early days. The agents are really, and the agents, I mean, like whether it's ChatGPT or Google, et cetera, are sort of being very careful as they build the systems to scale. We've seen to date sort of a focus on retail in the United States and large retailers at that. And we are actively, both in partnership with Wix and across the ecosystem with the AI agents, working diligently to expand access and to scale down the retail market and into other verticals and geos. And so I think part of the strategy is get agentic ready now so that as that opens up, it's more of a flip the switch.
Absolutely. No, that's a great answer. And another question that came in that I think is really important as we're talking about getting started and you know starting with those first few use cases and getting to the point where agents can actually make real business decisions. Jeff, you talked about this, right? We talked about the checkout page. what are maybe some of the really top guardrails, right, you would want to have top of mind as you are getting to the point where you are, using an agent and then letting them make a real business decision, whether it's a pricing, a fulfillment decision, an inventory decision. What is probably those really top guardrails you would recommend? Jeff, you want to start with this one?
Sure. I think it's going to be different for each business. Like the way we're looking at it is more of the human in the loop to start out with. Like these decisions are on the operator side, they're high risk and high trust sometimes. Making sure that you think through the human in the loop process for operations. So for example, even in our Zendesk ticket automation, right, for getting a support request, we're looking to pre-fill that data so that the operator still can make that final decision, the communication. We're starting a marketing campaign for our new data products where it'll email every week your update. And we don't want that going to our direct shippers without humans in the loops like Neil's team understanding what's being shared out and is it aligned with what we're already telling them about their network and how to optimize. And so making sure we build that context. So those are like high trust, high risk kinds of decisions where like insurance upsell, maybe estimated delivery kind of upsells, optimizations. Those might be things you do trust the agents and they'll be at high volume where you can get feedback loops and have it be auto approved or just in the system. So I think we'll see some of that high trust needing human in the loop and then cross sell upsell is where it can be automated and measured.
Absolutely. No, I think that's spot on, and I love the idea of making sure there's a human in the loop, right? Especially as you're starting something and testing, but that's how you optimize the quickest. And one last question for everyone, we can go before we wrap up here. We talked about the true end-to-end journey, right? From discovery and intent all the way to fulfillment and support. But we also talked about this is early days. There's different protocols coming forth, there's different tools that are out there, and just getting started. But from your point of view, maybe looking at those next 90 days or even 6 months in the end-to-end journey, based on what you've actually seen come into market in these use cases, what maybe slivers are truly the most ripe for disruption with agentic commerce today?
Yeah, I can sort of take it. Personally, I think based on the sort of on the ground reality today, like if you sat there and asked yourself, like, what should I do in the next 90 days? I think that's a good pressure test. Audit your product data. How have I organized my catalog? Is that going to be good for the sort of product syndication out into AI platforms today with a human in the loop? How is that going to look down the line when the human is out of the loop? Is it machine readable, structured? Can an LLM parse it, et cetera? Two, I would just say like experiment when you can and figure out who to partner with. Whether you are a retailer looking for an e-commerce platform like Wix, or if you're looking for sort of a sort of undergirding financial infrastructure platform that can sort of help you understand the ecosystem. I think it's critical to sort of get an understanding of the overall space and what's available. Three, I would say like identify a pilot use case, like one category or SKU, and find somewhere that you can sort of test agentic selling. And then maybe the last piece is I would just say the companies that I think are sort of moving quickly are sort of assigning ownership. It's not like kind of everyone's job. It's just an individual or like a SWAT team that is responsible to figure out agentic, have some clear goals on what sort of launching an MVP is going to look like, and sort of running at it the problem from there. So that's what I would sort of say versus sort of waiting for perfect standards to emerge or building bespoke integrations across the board or sort of ignoring it because it's like not fully autonomous yet. I would sort of like make sure that you're getting everything ready to go.
Yeah, absolutely.
If I could add, I, by the way, I completely agree. Uh, I would, for the sake of giving the other side of the operator, I would look in-house and I would understand what are we doing in an inefficient way as operators, and I would pick one of those tasks and replace it. It will build trust within the organization. Uh, and then as that trust gets built, whether it's that SWAT team or it's one of your pioneering, more tech savvy personnel, it starts creating this small fire in the office. Everybody wants to get rid of their mundane, task that they don't like, and it doesn't really serve them, and it doesn't really utilize their skills. So the moment one person sees that, oh, I created a dashboard using Base 44 app, and I have this full control over my sales now, and no longer do I need to run around between spreadsheets. The person next to them obviously wants the same thing because he's still dragging from one cell to the other and making VLOOKUPs. So those things that we've been struggling with for so long are now fixable, and that's without, I would say, compromising your brand when you're not in a trust mode. So you want to go into that trust mode and you want to build that trust, go in, fix some of your manual procedures, level up, and then you can actually start surfacing it out, and it moves like rapid fire. And you would also feel very comfortable when you expose it to your buyers.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. That's a great way for us to wrap up. I think the theme of the day is get started. So I want to thank all of you for joining us and listening in.